What's up, guys? We're on our way to Advance Auto or AutoZone, one of those two. And today we're going to go ahead and finish up our heat exchange cooling system for the LSA blower. Yeah, I know it's been a long time since my last video. It's been a few weeks on this heat exchange system, and that's just because it was back ordered. The pump and the wiring harness that I ordered from Lingenfelter was back ordered. So today I've got it in, and we're going to go ahead and complete that setup. And the idea is to have it all self-contained and running, and then that system is done. So let's get right to it. So, getting back to this LSA cooling system, I've got everything that I need. The only thing that I don't have is the hoses and clamps. Everything else should be all set. I already have, as you've seen in this video, and I'll leave a link here to that one, I did the heat exchanger, and that one is mounted in a really cool spot where I was able to retain, and it's a big heat exchanger. I was able to modify the hood for that, the hood latch panel, if you will, the bracing, change the bracing for that where we could get and keep the heat exchanger in there. So that's all set, it's mounted, it's done. And my other video where you've seen where I mounted the coolant reservoir, that's all done as well. And I'll leave a link here for that in case you haven't seen it. But all this is going to be in the LSA blower playlist, if you will. So you'll have all the videos there. If you decide to do something very similar to your car, then you'll have the playlist to kind of go by. So my plans for mounting the pump is to mount it under the battery tray. And as you know, I relocated the battery, and here's a link to that. I relocated the battery to the back, and so I was able to utilize all that space, which I really needed, because you run out of room quick once you start putting all these things in there. And if you keep AC, you start to fill up that engine bay pretty quick. So really the only reason why I moved the batteries was just to give me a little bit more real estate under the hood. Now my plan is to mount the pump underneath the car around that battery tray, and that's, I mean, I think that's similar to like where the CTSV, it's kind of under the car, and there's two straps or two mounting brackets that mount that up to it, which goes to the which goes to the hose system. So I have a pretty good idea where I want to mount the pump, and I have a pretty good idea how the hoses are going to run. But of course, that's all theory until you actually get the system pretty much all mocked up and ready to go. So that's going to be today, is we're going to go ahead, get that pump. But I bought the system at Lingenfelter that included a pump as well as the wiring harness relay. So that is going to be part of the install today as well. We're going to go ahead and wire in that relay system, which is pretty easy. We have a trigger wire, which I think I'm either going to do from the fuel pump, because the idea is you want, the way I see it is, I hate switches, and I don't want to have to remember to flip switches on and all that. Everything in my car is managed by the ECM for the most part, or its standalone system, but I don't have any of those crazy switches all over my car. I can't stand that stuff. Number one, I mean, it's fine for you guys that want to, you know, manually control when you want things to come on, fans and all that. For me, I'm a very forgetful person, and I'll be driving down the roads and the fans won't be running, and the heat exchanger pump won't be running, and IATs will be through the roof. You know, I got to have things a little bit more autopilot and just come on automatically. So I think I'm going to go ahead and either use the fuel pump circuit or the ignition. And if I do the ignition, I think that's fine. It's basically when you turn the key on, the pump's going to run. The only thing I don't like about that is I don't want it running while you're starting the car and that extra amps, right? So I did some research and I found out that there's actually a relay timer which you can order, and I think they have them on Amazon as well. It's 10 seconds before it's actually engages the circuit, which I think is pretty cool, because then as soon as the ignition's on, it actually won't engage the system for 10 seconds. So I gotta turn around here. I'm running my mouth. But so I think that timer relay is actually going to be pretty cool. So we'll put it, I think I'm going to put it on the ignition circuit, the key on, and then look into that timer relay, and that should solve that problem. So anyway, guys, that's kind of the thing for today's video. Let's get to it. All right, boys and girls, got a sneak peek. We got the system all done. Whoa, look at that. We have flow. Basically, it's a closed system, if you will. No LSA blower yet. I just kept one loop, and then when I put the blower on, I'll cut the hose and hook the inlet and the outlet out for that, and it's done. So this will allow me to test it for a little while until I get the blower on, test the system, make sure there's no leaks. The pump is underneath the battery tray. And then of course I have the heat exchanger here. All done. Turned out really nice. Took me pretty much all day, which I thought would be really easy. I got the relay wired all in. I have that on the ignition switch. I think I'm gonna do a timer delay type relay. That way it comes on after 10 seconds and energizes the circuit. But just wanted to give a sneak peek. This is awesome. All right, guys, so let's go through a few of the key pieces here we're gonna work on today. At the center piece of this project is the Bosch pump. This is an upgraded one. I'll put a description down in the link, but this one is from Lingenfelter, and it came with a pre-made harness. And as you will see, I will put this jump lead on here, but for the most part it's all done. You just hook 12 volt constant, your trigger wire wherever you want that to come to, and then your grounds, and that's really it, and this thing's ready to go. And what's cool, it already has the connector that goes directly into it, so it fits just like OEM, which I love. Now normally I make these things up myself. I was really lazy and I just decided to go ahead and purchase this and get it done. So those are the two main things that we're going to work on first. The next thing is obviously I bought about 25 feet of heater hose, 3/4 inch, as well as some clamps here. And I'll measure this out, and I have a little rough diagram that I want to use for this and come up with a way of routing this as clean as possible, and we'll see how that goes. The next piece of this is obviously just kind of cleaning it up. I've got some of these clamps here that I've used before, and that's going to be used to tie down and secure the heater hose in a nice clean fashion. And then as you guys seen before, I also have these hose separators that I've used. This will actually clean the install up as well, since there's so many hoses under the hood between the heater core and the AC hoses, and now the blower hoses coming to the blower here. So that's kind of the idea. Then this piece here is going to be temporary until I actually get the blower on. And so the idea is, you know, down the road, these are going to go on here, and the two hoses will connect to the back of the blower. So my idea was, since this isn't on yet, I'm gonna go ahead and just use this as a way to connect the hoses, or I may just kind of loop them and keep it as one unit. That way this whole thing is circulating. It won't have the blower, of course, but it's a standalone system. I'll work out all the bugs, all the leaks. This thing will be done. And then once I put this on, then I'll go ahead and cut the hose where it loops and clamp these on, and that's done. So it's just a lot of work now just to kind of get everything set up. But the idea again is when I actually put the blower on, it's going to be like an afternoon job, right? I'm going to have the fuel system done. I'm going to have the heat exchanger system done, the coolant system. The front accessories are already done. So all that's going to be done and it should be just a day process. So that's really the process here and what we're going to use for today's installation. So let's get to it. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove this. This, as you've seen in my other video, I'm utilizing the battery space. There's actually my relay box is underneath this. So it's just one bolt that actually uses the standard battery tray bolt. So that's threaded. It's a threaded rod that uses that same hold down originally used. And so I leverage that, and that's on the video where I shot installing this if you're interested on how I did that. Ring's gonna fit, we're gonna see in a second, but that's gonna go on the power side of this fuse relay box. Go ahead and plug in the fuse jumper right here. All right guys, let me take you in here a little bit closer and kind of show you what I just did. It was kind of hard to see from where you were at. Let's see if I can get some light on it. So here's the harness here. We've got, this is the fuse relay center here that come with the LS3 controller kit. So two connections really I made on here. The first one, as I described, I went ahead and did a jumper off the ignition. That's going to trigger it. As I mentioned, I'm going to get a timer relay, so that'll delay energizing the pump circuit for 10 seconds, I think. We'll see how that goes, to be determined. And the second thing I did was constant 12 volt, which is right here. And if you see, this is kind of how this is laid out. So that's all set. Now we just need to attach a ground, and then I'm also going to go ahead and mount the relay, probably right up in here. All right, I got you guys in here a little bit better angle for this one. So again, we have this all hooked up. I'm gonna go ahead and close up this box. All right guys, kind of the final piece here to wire this up is going to be our ground, and then we can plug this up. Just make sure I get some power here to it. All right, ignition is on. Yep. We got power, boys and girls. Now we're gonna go ahead and put all this back together, clean it up. I've got a ground here that I may use. All right, again, guys, let me take you in a little closer here. Kind of saw the action from around the back of the hood area, but now I'm going to kind of take you in a little bit more. So we went ahead, mounted the relay. That's the fuse for the relay. So that's all set and mounted as well. And then the ground is right there, along with my fan grounds. So that goes right on the radiator support. So that's a well-known good ground, which I've scraped the paint off behind the bolt, so we're super good there. And I also put some loom around the 12-volt wire coming into here, and that should be pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together, and we're done up here. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna need to get the front end up. So I'm gonna back out a little bit, open the garage door, and go ahead and prep for getting this front end up so I can mount the pump underneath the battery tray. So let's go ahead and get that done now. Got this under the battery tray. Now I'm just gonna, got a self-tapping screw. Just gonna get in there. Okay, so that's mounted. So we've got the intake right here, and that's where this hose is gonna go, basically. That's coming from the bottom of the reservoir. Then this one is gonna go to the heat exchanger, to the top of the heat exchanger. Alright guys, So I got that hose coming from the pump, coming through the fender here under the battery tray where the pump is. And then I used a 90-degree elbow here, and that prevented any kinks kind of getting in there. So that's hose number one. All right guys, kind of got this hose routing completed. A little bit more trickier than I thought, just because you want to make sure you don't get any kinks in it. So the way you position these different components, the pump, the fittings are all pointed in different directions. So what seemed to be pretty easy ended up taking me probably a couple hours by the time I clearanced some things and you know, getting things routed in the right direction. It's really hard, sometimes difficult to snake it through different areas, and I wanted to do it in a way where it was maintenance free, but when I wanted to maintain it, I could get to it pretty easy. So let's just kind of start here. So we'll start at the, let me grab the lid and just put the lid on my LS3 intake just to kind of illustrate how this thing is going to work. So let's go from there. The first thing that you'll notice is I've got a loop here. And again, once I install the supercharger, then I'll just cut that loop out, and then they'll go onto the fittings back here. So that'll work out nice, but for now, until I get the LSA on, this system will be running, tested, and it's going to be all set up standalone. So you can see here, coming back from the supercharger, it's going to go into, we'll just follow it, goes into the reservoir in the top. Okay, then from the reservoir, the bottom one here goes down to, goes to the pump. From the pump, it goes through this one here, through this one right here, up to the top of the heat exchanger. It comes out the bottom of the heat exchanger, which is, I'll get on the bottom. Right there, comes out of the bottom of the heat exchanger, and now this is the cooled liquid. It's gonna flow up, and I got it through the fender, and then it comes back up and completes the cycle back to the supercharger. So that's really it. So again, supercharger, hot liquid comes to the reservoir, goes to the pump under the battery tray, goes to the top of the heat exchanger, comes out of the bottom of the heat exchanger, comes back through and back to the supercharger, the cool water or Dex Cool, whatever you run. So I still got some cleaning up to do, and I got, you know, to really tidy all this up, but that's the basic routing there. I'm actually going to test it now. All right, it's like no leaks. A little top off. This beauty. Now again, this is no supercharger on. I got it in closed loop, I guess you could say, which is just one hose that loops back there, right? And I guess I'm getting the air out maybe. I wasn't sure if I needed to fill it up past and get it up to the level there or what, but I'll figure all that out. But this is really cool, no leaks, and I didn't even test it with water. I just went straight in and said, give me the Dex Cool 50/50, and I'm gonna go ahead and run it with that, because I didn't really have any distilled water, and I just didn't want to put regular tap water in the system, being brand new and everything. Look at that. Whoa, that's a beautiful thing.